this hackathon will actually be the first wherein the hackathon is actually a part of SC. This year, of course, we have some unique challenges wherein the hackathon itself will be taking place virtually, but we're still going to localize the problems. But the purpose of this particular session is to give mentors or those that are considering being mentors of team a few tips, a few techniques to be able to work with their teams effectively. So having said that, I want to introduce you to some of our or two of our veteran mentors that will actually be running the session. Now, I myself, I'm Jamie Powell. I'm a part of the organizing committee for the hackathon, but also we have with us Charlie Day and Jun Yi. Now, a part of getting to know your team is you have to break the ice there in the beginning. And so we decided to do a little bit of an icebreaker this morning to kind of give you some ideas for how you might break the ice for your team. Now, in our case, for me, what we've decided to do is kind of give our spirit actors or characters from TV shows that we think fully display and fully embody who we are. And so for me, my spirit character is Jake the dog from Adventure Time. And the reason for that is because, well, he's wild, he's out there, he gets a lot done, he can turn into what he needs to when he needs to. So beyond that, I'll hand it over to Charlie.
I guess my spirit animal or character would be a less refined but more psychologically stable version of Tony Stark. So, like fiddling with electronics. I love teaching, and and I think I've had 3 students who actually told me that I reminded them of Tony Stark. So I'm always putting those in my little back pocket, saying, "Hey, that's awesome."
And Judy.
My spirit animal or spirit character is going to be Abed Nadir from Community, because I watch a ton of TV and movies, and I don't care how bad they are. I just love to see whatever it is, that pearl of something that could possibly be great, surrounded by like everything just being like the rest of it being bad in things. So you'll notice, I don't know if you've seen the show, but he's dressed as Inspector Spacetime, and I love Doctor Who, and I got started in like the 1980s eras when everything was like it was a god's awful show. So that's kind of if I watch something, like that's how I go. I've seen every single Highlander movie more than once.
Even the second one?
And the third, and the fourth, and the fifth.
Have you seen the series?
I think you're mistaken.
I've watched probably the majority of the series, but I think it was at a time where it was like difficult for me to get it because there wasn't any streaming. So once it goes on streaming, then I'll totally be there.
It's on Amazon Prime, right?
We gotta hurry up with the training then.
I love the series. Highlander the series is great.
Oh yeah, it's
one of the Highlander, and since this is just Icebreaker, have you seen the new Uber Eats commercial with Mark Hamill and Patrick Stewart?
No.
You should see that.
I feel like I'm gonna have
to put it on my list. Look for streaming now.
So let's check with our other people in our group here, so to speak. Let's see what your spirit animal is. Now I'm going to stop my share in case you have taken the time to find your own spirit animal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the list, and I'm just going to read down, introduce yourself, where you're from, so what company or organization you're affiliated with, and what your spirit character is. So first on the list is Boyd, also a member of the organizing committee.
Wow, spirit animal. Anyway, spirit character. So my name is Boyd Wilson. I work at Omnibond, been helping out with the hackathon for, quite a while now. And first thing that came to head was Inspector Gadget, because it's kind of clumsy and falls into things, but I don't really have much that comes out of my hat. But I really do relate to watching everything sci-fi. Just everything, it's bad or good or whatever. I'm with you there. The probably, you know, my mom used to always call me Charlie Brown when I was growing up. So I am probably going to go with Charlie Brown because sometimes, you know, anyway, just because of that.
You're gonna pull the football, aren't you? No.
He
I'm
pulls the
gonna hold it.
Someone's going to pull the football
I
for
would
me.
literally try and kick the football, knowing the football's going to be pulled.
You know what? It always goes for it. He always goes for
Yep.
the football.
The boys, I would say that the Inspector Gadget one's pretty good because I've seen you in action. You do pull a lot of crap out of your hat.
Yeah.
I've seen your arm shoot out too, like in real life. So
I am going to remember that for the future, boy. Just warning you. Up next on the list, Edgar.
Man, it's hard because I love a bunch
What, your
of
name? Well, I can tell you your name.
Oh, wait. Was I supposed to? Do I have instructions? I have to introduce myself. Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I was already talking about my spirit cartoon animal.
he's so into the activity.
Yeah, I am. My name is Edgar Garza. I work for TAC. I'll be filling a staff supporting role for this hackathon. It'll be my first time interacting with all of you to do this, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm a big anime fan, so there's a lot of spirit cartoon characters out there that I relate to, but the most I always like to relate to is what my virtual background is, which is a scene from Steven Universe, where they're up on the farm. But Steven Universe is there's two iterations. There's one where he's like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and then one where he's already like 3 years later as a teenager, a little more mature, but he's just lovable and caring and wears his feelings on his sleeve and curious and always wants to be helpful. So like, that's what I strive to be. There are things that I do fit, but there are things about him that I strive to be like.
Nice.
Universe
You know what?
is actually a great cartoon.
Yeah.
Enjoyed.
In
season.
solid.
I've seen probably the series and then the movies and then I've seen it like 3 or 4 times already.
That's awesome. Yeah, our 16-year-old is a huge Steven Universe fan.
In solidarity, I'm gonna have to change my background to an Adventure Time background now. So that's your fault. All right, up next, Rich.
I obviously didn't read the whole email, but let's see. I actually put together one slide. But I didn't have it open.
A
So give me a
slide of
second.
your spirit character? Oh my goodness.
Well, you guys had a slide.
Slide of your spirit
Give me
character,
one
then it's got to
second.
be Annie Edison from Community.
Might be disappointing you. No, this is something that I get accused of at times, and I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but let me see if it'll work. Share something. Oh, show all windows. There we go. So that's pretty much me. I tend to be a MacGyver, kind of. Do whatever needs to be done.
The man with 3 first names.
So
Richard Dean Anderson.
no, I'm just the one with one name, MacGyver.
Okay.
My Swiss Army knife has a lot more, blades. But anyway,
Original. Has anybody watched the reboot of MacGyver?
I keep saying I'm going to, but it has not happened yet.
Yeah, I have
Yeah, I
not.
have.
The
I feel like
original
anytime I
MacGyver-
try to MacGyver, I end up kind of more Grubering instead.
Ooh.
I'm gonna MacGyver it. Oh, I MacGrubered it.
And up next, Sanji.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's nice to meet with all of you. My name is Sanji Wang. I'm from University of Missouri. So I'm totally new here, so I just received an email message from a boy yesterday. He was like, "Do you guys have somebody to help with this hackathon, or do you have any project to maybe contribute to this project?" I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't have any experience with this hackathon, or I'm not aware of any project, but I'm willing to come here and see what kind of support I can provide, or any help that I can help with." I'm sorry, I'm not aware of this assignment to find a spirit character. So, so maybe next time. So I'm not ready for that.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you for coming. And
I
last,
wasn't either because I didn't read the email, Sanji. Sorry, I would have let you know.
Okay.
oh no, this was not the
In the
email.
email.
This is an icebreaker. This was for you to be shocked. And up next, we have Josh.
Hey, my name's Josh. I work at Omnibond with Boyd and Rich. I also do some of the website stuff for the hackathon. So if you see anything spelled wrong on there, that's on me. Just send me an email and I'll fix it. It's happened numerous times, so not a problem. And for my spirit character, I am gonna go with Joe Bluth from Arrested Development.
Nice.
There's money
Just,
in the banana stand.
Exactly.
Or is not this $100 just 100 pennies?
Just a really awful magician who really doesn't know what he's doing. So yeah, that's me. I might need to leave in maybe 10 minutes because I have another meeting. But just wanted to say hi, and I'm very excited to have you guys all here. Yeah, thanks.
Not a problem. Thanks, Josh. All right. So carrying on. So,
Hey, we have a new member.
oh, Ag, you have dropped in at the perfect time, sir. You're like, oh man, I just got here. My sound just barely connected.
In
But
time
you're
to
at
be
the
put on the
perfect
spot.
time to introduce yourself. So, Ag, what you need to do in this split-second challenge is to tell us your name, what organization you're affiliated with, and your spirit character. By that we mean, for me, is Jake the dog. For Charlie Day, it's Tony Stark. For Edgar, is Steven Universe, and the list goes on. Oh, and my favorite for Rich is MacGyver, the original Richard Dean Anderson. You have to say it all together. Ag, so Ag.
Hey.
And Ag, you're muted right now, buddy.
Nope, still muted, Ag.
Still muted.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
That's a tough one on the spot. The first thing in the morning. Let's see. So I'm Ag Bully or Ag Amico. I'm with In-Car Sizzle Group, and my spirit character would probably be, who would that be? I don't know. Darn, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really tough one. Let me see. I have to see which one I want. That's a tough one. I can't really think of one off the top of my head.
I will totally say that Ag is a very unique person. Some people you see me, you're like, oh man, they remind me of such and such. I don't do that with Ag. Ag is his spirit character.
I would ask what drew you to weather as a field?
As a field, oh, that's a good question. I mean, I've been sort of looking at like climate or like little weather stuff. My first little science fair project back in like 6th grade or whatever it was like about like sea floor spreading and ocean sort of stuff, which I thought was really cool. I have no idea why. I just find it really interesting. Partly, I guess, some of my family's from Ghana, and then I lived, here. So also, I've went back and forth. So you kind of see a lot of the impact. So it's one of those things that you kind of get attracted to.
That's cool.
Very cool. Thanks, Ag. All right. So we're going to go ahead and push forward here, everyone. So the reason we did that and the reason we took the time to do it, as you see, it really didn't take that long. We did this in about 10 minutes. It gave us a way to kind of take a look at each other, to get to know each other, see the personalities of each other. And as mentors, that's one of those things that's a little bit more difficult to do. And so doing it in this manner opens the dialogue, allows people to interact and to start to form those relationships. So guess what? That means we're already training you. Now, having said that, we're going to go ahead and move over to the next slide here. All right, and the slide's up. Do I see a nod of yes? I got a thumb nod of yes.
There it is. Yes.
So just to run through the agenda real quick, we're going to look at some of the hackathon objectives and student outcomes or expected student outcomes, who the students are, sample project timeline, deliverables and resources, some mentoring information to kind of give you some ideas of the way this will work. And then we're actually going to have a little mini mentor hackathon. Oh, yes. That's happening today. Oh, look at Ag's face. He's concerned.
No, that's good.
Could be.
I like how Josh
I'm
already.
in, I'm in mountain time. What's going on
Josh is like-
here? It's still 8 o'clock.
Mentor techniques. So having said that, the objectives of Hpc Anaesthesia. So this is the next to last slide that I will be talking on, that I'll be handing over to Junior and Charlie here. The hackathon itself, of course, there's a lot of text on the screen. The real idea here is, for those that have participated in hackathons before, the idea is to take a very bounded amount of time to then take students and use mentors to create projects that allow the students to both develop and apply skills to a targeted problem. Again, in a very time-bounded event. What this allows people to do are to kind of, it breaks down the walls of being, it allows time for students and mentors to be focused and allows those skills to really come through. It also, because we're doing this target around a region, in this case, we're targeting the Atlanta metro region or issues that affect that area. It also allows us to directly affect the community. In this case, where SC20 would have been physically located. But that's the reason we're doing that. Some of the student outcomes, we want to make sure that the students have increased familiarity of data science in the cloud, experience collaborative software engineering, and develop professional communication skills. Give you an idea of some of the student demographics. So from all the hackathons we've done, we ask the question from the students, what do they self-report or self-believe their coding experience in these languages are? So in this case, Java, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being no experience, to 5 being they feel very comfortable in that language. So in Java, around 3.2, JS or JavaScript 2.7, Python about 4, HTML5 about 3, Django Aravita about 2. And so you can see there's about a medium level of understanding from the students, which means basically it's very entry level. My teacher went over it. I maybe did 1 or 2 programs in it level of understanding when it comes to these languages. And keep in mind, this isn't across the board. For the majority of the students, it's going to be 1, maybe 2 languages that they have experience in. And generally speaking, it's Python or Python and HTML. And the others are kind of learned skills as they go along. We have seen actually a good number of students that have used JavaScript as well. So the students, after all the students, so we have training sessions between now and November, every Thursday at this time. We're going to be teaching them GitHub and Slack. We're going to show them Python through Jupyter Notebooks. Kaggle REPL, it's a both of them are collaborative platforms. We're in all likelihood going to target REPL it, just to make sure they're kind of used to collaborative programming. And then we're going to also go over Cloudy Cluster, which is an Omnibond product that allows the students to spin up machines and clusters, HPC clusters, very easily, and Google Cloud. And they will be given Google Cloud credits as well. So that's why Google is one of our sponsors, and that's also why Omnibond Cloudy Cluster is one of our sponsors. And of course, they have really good attendance here. And while it's an intended baseline, we of course anticipate providing additional support. In other words, if a project that you've considered needs more explanation, we'll work with you. We actually have one blank session that, as you all kind of scale and scope your projects, that we can utilize to teach them additional skills that we may see across the board that all the mentors may need their students to have. So just keep that in mind. Having said that, I am going to shut up and pass this over to Charlie and Junyi.
Which one?
Jamie?
I'm going to say Junyi. Why not?
Okay.
Fellow Jay.
Rich, you had a question?
Yeah, well, kind of a comment and a question. So I think this is great because if you, Jamie, in particular, kind of debriefed with Brandy from our most recent hackathon, our team really suffered from basic computer skills, like being able to install libraries and packages, and even like having an operating system that allowed them to do these things. Like we had some real struggles, and that, really hindered our team. That meant that like half the team was trying to do something and the other half was trying to even start doing something. And so I love that there's sort of this preparation. And then the question, I guess, would be, is there going to be a cutoff? Are we going to have sort of like same day registration allowed? And if so, can we provide like kind of a, hey, here's the expectation that you show up, you know how to turn a computer on, you can install, at least MSI packages, don't, forget about binaries, but, like some level of I can use a computer to do something.
You say that, but I've got some PhD researchers over at Tech that can't do that. I'm just saying.
I was going to say
Like, did you
that.
try turning it off and then turning it back on again?
Is the power cable plugged in?
What I will say is that we're looking at no later than October 24th to ensure that we have the vast majority of our students completed. We're looking at a maximum of 40 students, which means a maximum of 10 teams with 2 mentors per team. So we do have some more mentors coming to assist as well. We're aiming for the 24th. Having said that, of course, if I hear I'm just going to be honest, if I hear the right sob story.
And this is being recorded. So now we have it on record that Jamie will hear the right sob story.
Yes. No, and in all honesty, we're going to try our best to cut everything off at the 24th, outside of mitigating circumstances. Now, of course, all of the training sessions will be recorded so that you can refer the students to those videos for pre-training as well.
Good. Yeah, and I'm not advocating exclusion at all. I would love to have inclusion, but I also would like maybe to have a bar an inch off the ground would be, helpful.
Well, I mean, we can do another self-reporting on the people who want to come in and then base it off that. Because, yeah, I mean, it is difficult. As the previous mentor on some of these hackathons, it is difficult when you have 3 of your students who have, say, a level 3, 3.5, 4 on a lot of tech skills, and you have one person who has like a level 2, right? That they've never been experienced with it, they've never seen it, and therefore they're not used to the jargon, and then they feel kind of left out. And it's a kind of you have to do a cheerleading session to get them feeling good about themselves again, to be able
and
to.
We'll talk about like strategies for dealing with some of these unexpected challenges, like students jumping in at the last minute, not having the pre-prep. Maybe they aren't quite they haven't been onboarded into what we're trying to do. Yeah. So these are common challenges. Like whenever we conduct summer programs, sometimes we'll have people jump in right at the last minute. We've had situations where it's like my parents signed me up and I have no idea I was going to come. You know, like I wasn't the one that chose this for me, that type of thing. So we'll talk about that later. But anyway, to cover a kind of like a sample project timeline, because it is a very bounded amount of time, we wanted to make sure that there are firm milestones in place with clear expectations that help the students get to a final project and presentation. So they have deliverables, but to get there, we've set up all these different checkpoints, which you can see on the slide, for making sure that they know each step of the way what is the next thing they expect to turn in. Even if you give them the sample project timeline, they're not going to be familiar with everything. There's going to be quite a bit of, as a mentor, referring back to the timeline saying, okay, this is the next step, and 2 hours, you're going to do this. The sample project timeline is also there as well to provide, in addition to those milestones, an ability for you to step away from being a mentor and let the students work towards a specific goal that they can reference and say, like, that is the next thing I need to turn in. Because quite frankly, nobody wants to be on Zoom for 72 hours, and that's a thing. So there's going to be metrics for selecting who is the quote unquote winner of the project. So we can, having those metrics ahead of time, it allows us to tell the students, like, this is how we evaluate the quality of what you're doing at each of those steps as you go through the project timeline as well. Any questions? Okay, next slide, and I'll turn it over to Charlie.
All right, so we do have to make sure that the deliverables that the students are going to be hitting and define what those deliverables are going to be. What we've seen in the past is a lot of stuff being put together in the last few minutes to try and get their presentation up and ready. So this time we want to be able to make sure that the students know what these deliverables are going to be beforehand. So they can work on them as they're going through their project. So we ask the students, and we do this too in our classrooms. We ask students to make sure that their source code is available and they're including comments as they're going around. We also need a PDF of their presentation, which is the team members, and we want the photos or characters. What kind of technology they used in the project, and that needs to be a little different. We want that as well as to what skills did they bring into the project, what skills did they develop while working on it, and then what was their final skill set applying the project. And then because we're focusing on now so before, for anybody who's new, before the hackathons were kind of broad-based projects, all right? Something that can have some sort of commercial impact. We're moving it now to a more targeted selectional project, right? So now we want to see how can the project they're working on, which is some sort of data science project of some sort, how can that target the city they're in, and what kind of impact can their project make on that region? And of course, we want them to give us their GitHub link. So this also means that they are going to be using GitHub throughout their entire project this time, instead of just creating the link at the very last minute. So we want to make sure that the mentors have enough knowledge on setting up GitHub to be able to have the students implement it. And the students are going to be coming in with a little bit of GitHub training as well, right? And the resource they're going to be using is Google Cloud, and they're, thanks to Google, they're going to be having Google credits to apply to it. They'll be using Cloudy Cluster. Most common resources that we've used so far on the tech side have been Python and Jupyter Notebooks. I think we had some Node.js come in there. Last at the PERC hackathon, some of the students were using Replit, which is actually really cool. And then HTML for them to develop their sites. And the other thing, of course, is the data sets, which we're kind of taking we're aggregating the data sets before they come in there. They'll have a selection of data sets that's going to be available to the students. And they're going to pick something out of that and move from there. All right.
So when we talk about what's going to happen as a mentor, we're talking about specific challenges that we've seen in the process of doing mentoring in the past, and we're not going to be able to solve every single problem for for the students, or even assist them with solving these problems. So when we talk about what you can expect as a mentor, we're saying be prepared to not be able to solve everything. And yet at the same time, we want to have some generalized strategies for how can you deal with some of the common challenges that we've seen in the hackathon. Now, with respect to the specific hackathon, I don't know if anybody's participated in a hackathon externally, but because the students that we have are a very specific type of student that possibly have less experience in the computing sector, and they're younger than a professional adult that would go to a hackathon, the challenges are not only technological, but they're also professional. They're related to professional communication, teamwork skills, self-efficacy. So the rest of this presentation is really going to talk about those specific types of challenges that you will face as a mentor. Next slide.
It's coming, I promise. There we go.
So some of the challenges that we've experienced in the past, and this is going off of what Judy was mentioning before, is that these are some of the challenges you will see, and these are things that you have to kind of expect that these are going to happen, and also keep in your mind, how are you going to solve these? There is going to be an imbalance in participation, which means in my group last at the PERC hackathon, some of the students had a very knowledgeable on how to do some data analysis, right? But there's a couple students who needed a little bit more push in the participation to be able to add to the project. So there's going to be an imbalance, and you have to figure out how are you going to solve that imbalance. What students do you need to kind of lift up a little bit, and what students do you need to say, hey, before you do this, explain what it is you're doing to your peers. Other things is some of the students, they're going to pick a project or they're going to have, all right, students are great. And when you're in your 20s, it's a fantastic time because you haven't set in your sight, everything's possible, and I can do it, and there is zero latency in building it, right? So they're going to do a project or want to do a project that's not going to be viable, all right? An example is these last 2 hackathons, there's been at least 2 groups that say, hey, I'm going to apply machine learning to my data set without having much knowledge of what machine learning is or what the algorithms are or how to even apply it. And,
Buzzword.
And those were too big to do in a 48, 52-hour hackathon session. So their direction might not be viable. So our job as mentors is to try and bring that, don't change their direction, just got to reel the direction in a little bit. Students are also reluctant to drive the process. They're students. They are used to a professor telling them, this is what your end goal is going to be, and these are the steps you're going to take to get there. A lot of the classes Jamie and I've taught, we've had one class where we kind of had an abstract project, and that was successful in the state that at the end of it, it wasn't abstract anymore. Jamie and I were telling them exactly what they needed to do with their data sets. So they're reluctant to drive the process. So your job as a mentor is essentially poking and prodding at them to get that project to go. Once they're able to get some traction under their feet, they're going to be great, but you have to make sure that they can get that traction. A lot of students also, when they pick a project, they don't know how to get there. I mean, they will go down a rabbit hole on Google that's going to lead them somewhere that we don't want them to go. Students just want quick answers. Sometimes it's okay for the mentor to give the answer straight to them. But other times you kind of might want to shift them to find the answer on their own. Junie and I have noticed in some of the mentoring that we've done in the past with some of the K through 12 programs, that they learn a lot more and they're a lot more vested in the project when they come across their answers on their own. And that leads into the morale. As they hit roadblocks, their morale is going to go, their morale is going to just come crashing down. It's going to decrease over that 52 hours. So we have to come up with creative ways to make sure that the morale doesn't die. One thing I've noticed is reel in some of the milestones. All right. So you have these milestones that you're going to set up. Make some quarter milestones or half milestones that can bridge between the two. That'll help them feel like that they're actually accomplishing something. Right. And of course, the students don't communicate. So what I've noticed and what we've done is these icebreakers are a great way for students to kind of break the ice and to communicate with each other and have a little fun and sometimes break away from the program for a bit. The hackathon, there was one time at 11:30, the students were working. We just took a break and we just talked about what we're watching on Netflix and started making Netflix recommendations to each other, just to kind of get our minds back in the game by stepping away from the game for a little bit. And you're going to have to come up with some creative ways to do it on your own to get your students to talk to you. Students are going to tell you that they're doing great. Project's going great. Yeah, they're able to do this, that, and the other. But, you know, they are trying to make you happy. They're trying to make you the proud parent. And so they're going to embellish what they've done. So you need to kind of dig through there and have them communicate with you what issues they're actually having. And like Judy said before, it's an iterative process. You're going to face this every day of your mentorship. All right. Sorry, Jamie.
No, not a problem. I want to throw one more thing out there that is it's a very physical challenge. All of your students aren't going to have Macs. All of your students aren't going to have Windows machines. Some of them may have Linux machines. Some of them may have Chromebooks. So if you're dealing with a project that requires them to install a very specific piece of software, you may want to consider using something like using the Google Cloud platform for them to install it there so that there's an even playing field for them all. Otherwise, you're going to hit that imbalance in participation. You're going to have the project direction change. The students are going to be reluctant because they feel like those students aren't having a problem, but I am. You're going to have the problem with answers. Morale is going to decrease, and the students, of course, won't communicate about it because nobody wants to say, I can't do something. Yeah. So that's one of those things to think about when you're considering your projects and what you're dealing with.
And guys, I notice a lot of your old mics are muted. That's fine. But if you have a question or want us to elaborate on something or have something to add, feel free to do that. You know, you can interrupt us. We're used to it. It's all good.
Okay, so a quick question from a mentor perspective. I know, like sometimes there's sort of like a pop-up surprise something. Sometimes as mentors, I think we knew about it. Sometimes we didn't. Is there a way for us to sort of have cheat codes in terms of just knowing when stuff's going to happen so we can kind of help? I mean, if it's meant to be a surprise, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but
I would say, Rich, that like in terms of what's appropriate for the goals of the hackathon, the goal of the hackathon isn't necessarily solving technology problems. So if, for example, you know, you have like a Google Auth problem with getting like an API to Auth, if it's something that's Googleable, where it's a series of documentation steps, it doesn't really, you know, it doesn't generate a lot of benefit for the student for them to quote unquote discover this documentation. So I would say that if you had that in your pocket to grease the wheels, that's an appropriate greasing of the wheels. Something that you want the students to discover are, for example, higher level challenges in terms of conceptual stuff or discoveries in data. But as for process stuff, if you have it in your pocket and that's part of your technical skill set, I say just go ahead and give it to them.
Right. And then the side note is you also have a wealth of different skill sets and things from we the mentors and we the participants as well. So if you have an issue, we of course use Slack to communicate. If you have an issue, either you can blast out a question on Slack. You can also ask during our main sessions, our check-ins and things to say, hey, here's what's going on. I need some help. We're still, even though the students are being challenged and there are prizes and things like that, the fact is that's not the point of it. That's why I don't blast that out on the website. The point is for them to have an opportunity to learn, to experience these things. And for me, more importantly, I am a strong believer in you build a community around problems. So just because we're all working towards this different end goals, that doesn't mean we can't reach across the aisle and say, hey, can you help me with this thing? And so you as a mentor need to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, and we definitely saw that last time. And I think the virtual hack actually facilitates that better than the live in-person one, because the live in-person one, you physically had to go find people to kind of track down that knowledge. Whereas I liked this last hack, and I'm sure you're thinking through that, where we had sort of like mentor like powwows, to kind of pull each other in, have a check-in, and having a Slack channel that's dedicated to mentors is great for that very same thing. It was more of the timing thing, like that concept of reeling in the milestones. Mm-hmm. and I think it's important for mentors to be communicated. Hey mentors, this is coming. Are your teams ready for this? I think that would be.
You mean like Jamie giving us a heads up that, hey, instead of just throwing it at it. Because Jamie threw some surprises at us. He always does. Give the mentors a heads up that these surprises are coming. So we can start.
Yeah, because, and I don't want to just drag this through the mud, but the last time we spent so much time helping, one particular student troubleshoot by having a cell phone pointed at his screen because his computer was incapable of screen sharing. That all of a sudden it's deadline time, and we haven't even had a chance to check in with the other members of the team to kind of see. So I think having that sort of ding, hey mentors, heads up, pay attention to this coming.
I think that one thing that we talked about some of these challenges, and some of the ways in which we're going to address that is, one, by having some of those technology and training sessions 4 weeks out and having those solved early, so that by the time you actually hit the body of the work, most of that stuff should be worked out. But then also, as far as mentors assignments are going, Jamie and I and Charlie and probably Brandy, if she gets back in, will basically rotate between the groups. So that way, if you need a mentor to have a side conversation with the student and get their specific technology problem solved, can get addressed early. You have the manpower to do it, and rather than going one mentor per group, we at least have some zone coverage of who is going to be able to help solve those specific challenges.
Right. The goal is 100% the goal is definitely to give you all to try to give 2 mentors per group at this point. So a primary mentor and then a secondary mentor that supports them and can have those side channels as well, of course. And then we'll also have the floaters. So we want to give you all as much support as possible.
But yes, we definitely recognize that recognizing the technology issues 24 hours in was already too late. And of course, part of that issue is students not speaking up because they don't want to be like, oh, well, I couldn't get this to work because it's my fault, not necessarily that the technology is challenging, because technology is challenging, and sometimes students just don't want to admit it, that that they don't recognize that the fault is in the technology. So as far as the fundamental principles of mentoring, these are 3 things that we want everybody to keep in mind as they're choosing some type of strategy for dealing with some type of challenge when that they face during mentoring. For example, like student participation imbalance or students not driving the process. This kind of comes from when I was a teacher for a school teacher for about 15 years. Eventually, it came down to what are the things that you're going to do that make you a good teacher overall in any given situation. And a lot of it is geared towards how do I make an environment where it is student driven and the students are actually moving forward and driving the learning process and self-actualizing. So the first thing is that we want to observe the students, not the work. Your student group's health in terms of not only just the progress forward, but also the emotional health of your students are tantamount for them producing good work. So rather than observing the work and trying to solve the work, solve the students if they're having issues. The second thing is there's a certain amount of what level of presence is appropriate. You want to definitely jump in every once in a while. You want to be present. You want to be in the background and always available, but you don't necessarily want to be completely omnipresent and always be jumping in and touching every single thing that students do. Now, obviously, believe it or not, in Zoom, this is a little bit easier to do simply because you can't hover over the student's shoulder. And you're not going to want to be on Zoom for 24 hours. I would say that like frequently with my group in this last hackathon, I checked in every 2-3 hours unless they slacked me, and then I would jump on. But I wasn't there 100% of the time. So the balance is a little easier to get remotely than it is like in person, where you can just sit there and like, well, I'm just going to eat this donut and hover over you and tell you what to type, which is something that you can do in person if you have donuts. So then the last thing is very frequently the students are going to go down the wrong path, or they're going to do something that like may not exactly be what you think they should be doing. The way to get them to drive the process if they're and kind of steer themselves in the right direction is, and this is difficult, asking what I call critical questions rather than criticizing the work. Critical questions are typically they're not yes or no. They're like interesting. You always start with like interesting, and then they'll be like, oh great, he said interesting, right? But then you can say like, how does this achieve your goal? Or like, or it's like, there's this potential problem, you know, that you may have not anticipated. How do you plan on getting past this? And even if you already have the answer, ask the question so that they can kind of come up with some of the answers and give them a little bit of time to think about how to address some of these challenges that you foresee that they don't necessarily see themselves.
Right.
Next
One of the famous ways that I like to do exactly what Junior is saying is I like to say, walk me through what you're trying to do. And a lot of times in them trying to explain what they're trying to do, they'll find their problem.
And also, sometimes also the critical questions, not criticisms, it's valid that they'll actually surprise you as well, coming up with a interesting solution to a problem that you may not have thought of, and that's all right too. The Perk Hackathon is a great example where the students went in a direction that I did not expect them to go, but it seemed valid enough that I kind of let them go down that direction just to see where they would end up. And honestly, they surprised me, and it was a very interesting challenge that they came up with and how they solved it and where they went from it. And, you know, it's something I never thought of before, but it worked. So critical questions kind of drove that in that direction that I wasn't expecting. And I think it worked out for the better. So yeah, you know, don't underestimate the students. It looks like we have a new participant, Jamie.
Yes. How you doing, Dr. Caldwell? So you are just in time
I'm
to be
fine. How are you?
I am doing just fine. You are just in time to be challenged.
Okay.
You have
Maybe I
walked
need to go back out for a few minutes.
Oh no. All right, so right now it is 9:55 and I want to make sure that we end by 10:05. So your task today, as I promised, you all are going to have a mentor challenge. Your challenge is going to be to pick one of the challenges that we previously said that I'm actually going to display again. You're going to quickly write down what's the problem, what technique you're going to develop or use to tackle the problem. Tell a story, ideally, of how you think this will play out, and then collaborate a way to report out with a presentation, one slide. Now, keep in mind, in this, so we actually have enough to have 2 groups, but I that's going to be a little bit too much to coordinate in that time. So Boyd, Edgar, Sanji, Josh, Ag, Rich, and Rebecca, or Dr. Caldwell, what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at what challenges does a mentor face. So it's a couple questions here. Am I going to the right one, Junyi?
Sure.
Yeah.
You all are going to pick one. Now I'm going to help you out. I'm going to say, Rich, you're in charge of the slideshow. So you need to go ahead and make a Google presentation, drop a link in chat. Make sure you share it out. You all need to pick a question, fill out the presentation, and then report back. And I'm going to give you all an astounding 4 minutes to do it. 4 minutes. So in other words, this is going to give you an idea of what it's like to have bounded time. You have a problem that you need to attack, work as a group, and give you a brief glimpse into what it's like being in the real hackathon. All right. You ready? We're going to shut up. Go. Hey, Siri, set a timer for 4 minutes.
God, I just activated my Siri over Zoom.
Oh, y'all better start talking. I'm starting to worry already.
Do you want to put us in breakout rooms really quick, or is that too much?
I'd say go ahead and go for it.
Yeah, no worry about a breakout room. Just use.
Hard, I think, when there's multiple situations going on and you can't.
What I would suggest is y'all may want to go ahead and pick a question first.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So to identify a problem. So out of those ones,
What about morale?
yeah, I was thinking that.
Where are the questions?
So I'm sharing the slides right now.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are the challenges that we have to for mentors to solve, or issues like imbalance in participation, might be issues with different, DevOps, like different computer platforms. Someone has Linux, someone has Mac, someone has something else.
Okay.
And then you've got, if the direction is like someone wants to add machine learning or something that may be a little bit of a rabbit hole to get into for a shorter.
Which
hackathon.
one is a problem that y'all are interested in solving? I think it'd be helpful if you just want to like type in Slack chat right now. Just type one, and then we can
Or
all
Zoom chat.
simultaneously, Zoom chat, and then simultaneously say which one you think is the most interesting problem to you, or one that you already have a solution in your head for.
I hate to do this. I have to jump off because I'm off right now. I'm sorry. No, it's
Imbalance and participation. All right, there we go.
Boyd's bailing. So
not a problem. Take care, boy.
I have a call at 11. Okay, take care. This is great.
See you, Boyd.
All right,
And
so I
then
see Josh's students do not communicate. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that's a good one between that and comms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have 3 for students do not communicate. I have morale/comms. I am assuming that's communicate. Anybody else?
I like the morale. I think morale has so much to do with momentum, and it ties into the communication. So I think it's because ultimately I think our objective is to have a successful outcome for them, right? I mean, not that they finish the project, but that they walk away uplifted, feeling like they want to do this again.
Great.
Am I
Jamie,
wrong?
can you forward the slide over to what they're supposed to produce today real quick?
Yes, I can. And by the way, you all have 2 minutes.
Okay, so let's actually go to the second thing, since these are interrelated things, as Rich pointed out. If they are both related, can you describe a situation in which this problem happens?
Currently, right now, none of us are communicating.
Hey, Jamie, could you move to tasks today slide? It's the next one up.
Sure.
Or next one down. Your task today is, there we go.
So, I mean, I think we mentioned one that's earlier. I mean, at a certain point, if you hit a wall and trying to know when you need to cut your cut your losses and sort of rescope or dial in sort of a particular thing. That doesn't mean you've lost. I mean, you've got to, sometimes you might lose the battle, win the war kind of thing, but that might be a bad analogy. But like say, hey, maybe we need to it may inform a new solution or a new idea that's better. So once you're down in the rabbit hole, sometimes giving that perspective to look up and say, oh, okay, maybe I could look at it this way.
So are you saying how to reframe kind of like if you will, a small challenge, something that you couldn't move past?
Yeah, I mean, and it's trying to maybe inquire, like if you see someone hits a wall, they may not realize they hit a wall, so that's where the communication might start coming into, and morale starts getting down because you're in a rabbit hole and you're swirling around inside of a rabbit hole, which is fine sometimes. But then it's like, okay, is everyone communicating about how we
10
are
seconds.
feeling?
So Jamie, let's go ahead and ignore the timer for now, right? Since we have good participation, and let's go ahead and say you all are in situations where you're frequently team leaders or mentors for other people. What are specific techniques that you have used in the past whenever you do have people that have hit a challenge that is causing both a morale problem and it's related to communication? Like, is there a specific thing that you've done?
I've used the sometimes, what do you call it, where we have everybody sort of throw in sort of either write it down or whatever, and sort of throw in sort of like a brainstorming session. So you brainstorm on the different issues. You like write down what you're trying to do and just throw it in the pile and just see where everybody's at. And it's almost anonymous, if you will. Well, it's not quite, but it's like a word cloud essentially. And by looking at a word cloud, you can kind of figure out what people are thinking without
I see Josh is nodding his head.
Without having to call anyone out specifically.
So is somebody, Rich, do you have that Google Doc? Are you adding that to your Google Doc?
Yeah, are you guys not able to access that link that I posted in the chat?
I'm a mentor here. I'm not going to be doing. Y'all are going to be doing.
Well, that question was out to everybody. All right, I'll see if I can figure out why.
I was gonna see what if I can go to my.
So in the interest of making this move forward, let's go ahead and type in Slack right now and then transfer it to Google Docs when we're ready to make that presentation. But so Ag said one strategy is writing it down. Jamie, can you go ahead and bring up those deliverables again? All right, so what's the story here in a situation where this write down your challenges solution may be an appropriate situation to use it?
What he means is if you're going to give us if you're going to write down and narrate or tell a story of what happened, how this is going to fix it, I think that's what Junie's mentioning here.
A solution story, if you will.
Yeah.
One thing that comes into my mind is you're like 2/3 of the way through the hackathon. You're maybe, 20 hours into a 30-hour hackathon, and they, or the students, your group, just hits a wall and has, every single person has a problem that they're still working on and still trying to solve, and they're getting down on themselves. So the morale plays into that. So like what Ag was saying, writing down, everyone write down 3 problems that you've encountered and 1 problem that you have already, overcome, or something like that, and then just filling that out.
Yeah, and the one of the thing I was going to mention, I like to use Jamboard is fun to use for these types of exercises.
So this is great. So this is a good story. You've got a technological solution as well, Jamboard, that can help you facilitate this. But then as the students give you this feedback of what the problems are, where do you step in as a mentor at this point after the problem and presenting the technique? Like, how do you address these challenges that they've written down?
Okay. Then the next question is there a theme with what we're looking at? So now we want to go into the next step of analyzing what all of this sort of feedback gives us. And, I will probably have an idea in my head, but a lot of times I'll throw it back on. I think it's good to throw it back on the group, right? And say, okay, do we see a theme in the issues happening here? And what do you think? I mean, that would be the first question, and see what feedback you get from figuring out, okay, well, I see that, a lot of people are just having, just completely hitting a wall with respect to, DevOps type things that we just think is the most irritating stuff or something like that. Or if someone might say, okay, we've got the data, but there's so much data sort of like wrangling or cleaning or some other issues that we may have with the data sets that might be this, or there may be some other technical thing like we tried machine learning or we tried a particular type of spectral analysis or something, and we completely hit us a wall here. But you might start seeing a couple of different themes and then figure out, okay, now if those are different themes, are they, are there something that I can do or mentors can do to like bring some resource to address the things? Or is it something that we need to rescope?
So I'm going to make a suggestion at this point. We've got the slides and I see a number of people in the participation, and we have 4 bullet points. What is the problem? What technique are you going to use to develop or use to tackle the problem? Tell the story, and then collaborate and report out. Let's take those first 3. What is the problem? What is the technique? And what is the story? Each person grab a slide and take some of what we've discussed here and put it into the slide right now.
Okay. Oh, yeah, let me.
All right, I see Josh is describing the problem. And then I've got a slide here for
Influence morale is up there. Looks like someone's typing there. What's the problem? The anonymous Courant.
I see Jamie is working on the A-Team van. Very important.
Kangaroo. Somebody is.
I'm trying to help. Do my part.
All right. So whoever Anonymous Manatee is talking about the Jamboard solution.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was me. I was just putting in titles.
Yeah.
Good.
There we go. There you go. Using a Jamboard session. Encourage check-ins. Good.
Rebecca, so actually, no, not everybody here has been a mentor before. Some of us have experience with students and teaching. So, but Junie and I and Jamie, we actually have been mentors before, which is why we're doing this. I know Ag has done a little bit of training before when I met him a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And Rich is basically a mainstay in all of our hackathons, so he knows exactly how this all goes down.
Yes.
I'm like a piece of furniture.
And just for that.
That's a nice one.
There we go. That's what we're looking at.
Now the A-Team song is stuck in my head permanently until the rest of the day.
It's a better song than the MacGyver theme song, so you know.
Oh, hush your mouth.
I know, I love it.
So who's going to be doing the story description? Somebody spoke extensively about the story earlier. Maybe that would be the person that is best suited for that.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially tell a narrative here. One thing I was going to tell you guys as well, or mention to you guys, the students' presentations, if essentially if they're having issues with that, have them tell a story of how they came up with their project and what goals they hit, what goals they still want to hit, and where they are now and where they see it going. That's a great story to tell, and so it usually makes a great presentation.
Actually, I'm looking at the what is the problem slide, and the first sentence actually sounds like a really good story just to drop into that slide for right now. I think the problem that we've identified is morale and communication, but the story is specifically the halfway through a hackathon, a team has hit a wall narrative.
Yes.
So perhaps that could be the narrative, and the statement of the problem is morale is low.
Good. All right. Now, I do want to be aware of people's time. So we are over time at this point. If you have another appointment, I completely understand if you have to go. But I think everybody's working really hard on getting this accomplished. So we'll continue forward, but we do understand if you have other appointments. We do want to be mindful of your time. And this video will be available for viewing after.
Are we meeting again as mentors in a way that coincides with the student training?
Yes, we're gonna have another meeting as mentors only, more towards the before the event, just to make sure that everyone's on board, that we're all scoped out for our projects and all that good stuff. So our traditional mentors overview meeting.
Is Alex going to be joining us this time?
Yes.
Okay.
So can we take a step back in the interest of time, because I actually do have to step out, but I want to put like a small soft cap on this right now, and then do a small discussion and then let you continue working. Jamie, can you jump back to the main slide?
Certainly. And good work, everyone, by the way. And I'm rather proud of the first slide I made there for you.
we are very grateful.
Let's go to the last slide, actually, or past the mentor hack.
Yeah, the last one.
Okay, so what you saw just now within these 20 minutes approximately is a microcosm of all the challenges that you will see, except spread across 48 to 72 hours. So if you can imagine everybody just sitting there in silence for approximately 30 seconds, multiply that by whatever 72 hours divided by 20 minutes is. That's literally what you will face sometimes. So I hope that everybody also saw that as Jamie and Charlie and I had previously done some of these mentor things, some of the techniques that we applied. So we kind of talked about doing this meta mentoring session where we demonstrate or model good mentoring techniques for you as a group, where you participate as students, if you will, or participants. Anyway, we hope that by modeling these good techniques, you'll at least see kind of what the challenges are that your students are going to face, and that in addition to having this great Jamboard idea that Ag presented that you can put in your pocket and pull out whenever you do have this situation, this gives you some ideas of how you can some of those fundamental principles that you can apply to solving some of those challenges that you're going to face throughout the hackathon process. But I think, Jamie, what do you want to do at this point? Let them work and then present out, or what?
So yes, I do want to let you all work. So what I'll do here, if you don't mind, give you all, what do you say, about 3 or 4 minutes? By the way, that's a technique I use. A lot of people will say like 5, 10, 15, 20. They usually stay on the 5 system. I like to give odd numbers, because it actually, for whatever reason, it triggers something in people's brains, I've noticed. So like when I schedule meetings, I'll schedule a meeting for 7 minutes. I don't.
But you'll notice that Jamie talked for 3 minutes while talking about giving them 7 minutes. So he only gave them 4 minutes.
Exactly. So would you all say 4 minutes is enough to finish up your slide?
It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think we should report out.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll give you 4 minutes of uninterrupted work. That is 4 times of Jeopardy playing.
You're going to play it for us, right? Just. Start the
Or-
YouTube video of Jeopardy.
Well, I was thinking about that. Or I think it's like 2 or 1.5 of staying alive.
Great. Now that song stuck in my head.
I know. I was just starting to hum that. So they done it.
Though the video of staying alive, the airplane dance sequence is what goes through my head when I think about the movie. So,
well, I sing the chorus to that for washing my hands, because
seriously, while you're washing your hands, to make sure you're washing for 30 seconds or whatever.
right. So you can tell by the way I move, I walk, I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. Gotta get to it.
I'm demonstrating the mentor technique of the art of silence.
So Jamie and I are demonstrating the technique of keeping things casual.
Yes.
The ice breaking. And that's the other thing I think we always come across too is, especially in a virtual environment, try and keep things casual. Talk to your students, have fun with it. And then the mood will lighten quite a bit and they can actually get stuff done or figure things out. Sometimes when they're just too focused on whatever it is they're trying to solve, just get jammed.
Mm-hmm.
I have to step out to a different meeting, but I'm really happy to see everybody here, and I look forward to working with y'all.
All right, and we'll of course let you know how the reporting out goes here. All right, so we have about a minute left, and then we'll go ahead and report out, and then we will end it off. One of the other techniques I do is, especially when it comes to these hackathons, you're staring at your screen. And we of course, we made sure that when we take a look at the students, we try to get our students to turn on their videos, their cameras. And the reason for that is so that we can actually see their faces, to see how they're reacting, to see how they're doing. The same thing we would do in the classroom. And the big thing I look for is exhaustion. Everybody knows that face where, they look like a walking zombie, where they're burnt out. And so one of the things I'll do is I will call random breaks. All right, everybody's burned out. Let's take 30 minutes. Let's take 10 minutes. Let's just get away from our computers for a little while. And that prevents people getting into that robot mode. And the catch with robot mode is just like a robot that has a bad AI in it that hits a wall and it just keeps hitting that wall over and over and over again. By giving them that time to reset, it gives them opportunities to go down different paths down the maze to get them down to the end. All right. I think I've seen the typing pretty much completed.
Yeah.
Do the presenting.
Presenting time. So this is the other fun part. Y'all haven't presented this before. What I usually tell the teams to do is to practice. Go through your presentation, decide who's going to say what and things like that. But I want you all to get an example of what it's like when you don't do that, so that you make sure that your team doesn't do this. And I'm going to make it even worse by starting out your presentation, which I actually do that a lot, don't I, Charlie? So
I figure you just kind of pick somebody and say, all right, you start.
Yep. So coming up next, we have the A team that's going to tackle morale management as related to a hackathon. And so A team, the floor is yours. See, you don't know what to do with that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rich, and our team is Josh, Edgar, and Dr. Caldwell, and Sanji. Dr. Wang. I don't know how to introduce you, but anyway, Jamie, would you mind clicking present mode, and then we could
Oh, sure.
Get the full effect there.
So for today, we were supposed to identify a problem or a challenge that our teams would face, and then also identify some techniques, some tools, some strategies of how to help our teams overcome those challenges. And we needed to format this in sort of a narrative and come together in a presentation form. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Josh to kind of introduce our challenge, our problem statement.
Sure. So our pretend scenario here that we've all seen in real life, or can imagine in real life, is that we're halfway through a hackathon. Our team has hit a wall. The morale has dipped down pretty far. Technology isn't working, and the participants are running into their own problems left and right. Ag, would you like to explain what our solution to this might be?
Yeah, so as a mentor, what we're going to do or trying to do is facilitate the team to break through this situation. So essentially what we would like to do is utilize a tool like Jamboard or mind map to sort of understand, list out, and catalog what all the issues are. And Jamboard allows you to give some level of anonymity in that, you can just open it up, put words, put things down that you're having issues with. So the first one is, let's have a word cloud about DevOps or any sort of systems issues, i.e. GitHub stuff, or maybe a Jupyter Lab, a Jupyter Notebook library is blowing up on you, or you have installation issues. Let's just put it all down and see what's going on, and just kind of get a mind map, anything, even little things, and put that down. The next thing would be also to do the similar thing with what sort of data issues or sort of, implementation phase, depending on where the project is. Let's put all those things down, and these would be 2 different slides. Once all that's down, we give them, 15 minutes, a period of time to do that, 7 minutes or something, depending on how quick how active it is. Then we say, okay, we ask the audience or the group, do you see any sort of common themes in these issues? And then, you start getting, and this would be another thing, you start getting, answers, and you start taking notes about what the common themes are. You start grouping them inside of these things where you start seeing the common themes. And then we say, okay, with these common themes that are grouped out, how do we maybe prioritize, or can we combine some of these things, or can we eliminate some of these things? And then we also look at, and of course the students are all doing that, and we're just acting as facilitators, as the mentors. And then we ask another sort of prodding question, which is, how does this inform what we were originally thinking at the beginning or earlier on in terms of scoping? And have we sort of discovered a new path to the solution that we're working with, and then see how the students may think these mappings helped direct towards a new solution. Now, of course, it's going to be differing opinions and everything else, but the bottom line point is that communitizing the issues triggers communication and collaboration that pushes the team past their challenges together.
I just want to say I'm really glad we have Ag on our team.
Keep morale high. Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to talk about this, or should I just talk about it? Sorry, we're not very smooth on this delivery.
How about you, Edgar?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
So for this slide, we were talking about how, as mentors, we can influence morale. So we start with storming, forming, norming, and performing in a tightly bound time space. So that just describes how we are actually going to be experiencing the hackathon. and mentally noting where the team is in that cycle. So as a mentor, being present, but not, taking over the group's direction. Watch for students pulling back where a technical challenge may cause them to self-isolate. I think that is very, that's going to happen a lot. I assure you it happened today in this exercise, either on purpose or because that was just the nature of people. And I will speak to that because I stepped back there for a bit. If you notice, I didn't say much and I didn't interact much. And I wanted to do that for several reasons, is because to show that as mentors, you may miss somebody, especially if they tend to be the quiet type. And so encouraging check-ins and participation from each student. And then going back to what Junyi was saying is to make sure that you're present, but not hovering. Next slide, please. And then I'll bring it back to Rich to finish out our presentation.
Well, we need to hear from everyone. So,
oh, who is? Yeah, sorry.
Sanji, would you like to take this slide?
Sure, no problem. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So the last slide here talk about how this morale impact the communication outcomes of the student projects. So there are two levels. One is the impact on the team overall. So if the team members having a morale like a problem, or they're pulling back, so their students will not communicate to each other, and then they will not be synchronized on the project progress, and they're not willing to work with each other on any of the tasks in the project. So this will impair the entire outcome of the team, and then they're not going to meet their objectives or milestones in a timely manner. So the next level is to each individual students. If their project fails or they're not able to accomplish their goals, the student will leave the project or the hackathon without any sense of a success. So they will feel very bad about themselves. And that should be it. Thanks.
And that's actually the last slide.
So just in conclusion, it's a very important thing as mentors for us to focus on how the team is feeling physically and mentally, and help encourage success through collaboration, communication, and using tools like Jamboard to identify where those issues are. So thanks for your time today.
All right. Great job, folks. So some of the things you just want to look at, really good job. So imagine that. At 9 o'clock, you had nothing. At 10:30, you had a cohesive slide where you all came together. So a very, very time constrained and yet teamwork way of you all getting things done. And probably at this minute, you have some feelings about that. You're like, yes, it's done. Even though it's something that was like so quick, you have that little bump of endorphins.
Serotonin.
It's really right. Just a little touch of serotonin. And imagine, and that's what you're going to be giving to the students during the hackathon. So just to say this so we can wrap up. So you're probably going to notice that you had to get to know each other. Edgar brought out a very good point. So Edgar and Sanjay really didn't say anything during the entire process until they presented.
And I want to add something to that, because on the other side of the spectrum, the student might be somebody that is introverted by nature, and that is not a limitation in and of itself. It
doesn't mean they're not engaged either.
Exactly. So if you notice, I was able to present about 90% of the slide pretty well. I knew what I was talking about because I was observing and listening to everybody else discuss, and I was able to take that information in and bring it back with my own twist. So going back to making sure that you observe your students, because they may be coming with personal challenges from home, especially now in a virtual setting. They may not want to show where they're at through video. They may not be able to speak because they may be sharing an office or an area. So taking those things into account will provide you an opportunity to either Slack them, individually or through the Jamboard, where it becomes much more anonymous, to be able to find out what's actually affecting a student.
Right. But like I said, if you notice, the way we were able to tell that is Edgar started presenting. So Charlie asked Edgar to present, and I asked Sanji to present. And you'll see us do that during the event as well. Sometimes during the challenges, we will have someone from a group present, and then we'll say it can't be someone that presented before. So as they're doing their updates, to make sure everyone's out, and what that also ensure, it solidifies for each person. So Edgar, as you did your slide, that slide became a part of you. You became the expert on that slide. Sanjay, when you did your slide, you became the expert on that slide. And so it gives you a sense of ownership within the team. So just to put it out there. You put out your project purpose and goals, and you can see how once you got that purpose, that problem defined, you were able to kind of split out and get go working. We didn't really gamify it other than picking on you all. But that was fun.
We played tag. That was it. We played tag.
We played tag. You all scoped the project. We scoped it down to make sure we didn't say you need to tackle all the questions. No. You just need to pick one. Well, I want to do all these. Not a problem. Let's see which one. All right, this one looks the most popular. That's how you can scope down a project. We gave you guidance and counseling. So if we had just said you have 5 minutes, go, and backed off, do you think you would have gotten anything done? No. As soon as we said this is your task, everybody got really quiet because you had no idea what to do. And so it's our jobs as mentors to get that ball rolling and to keep it rolling. Junyi pointed out, well, why don't you put up your slide, Rich, and then we'll work on it together. And that started getting the ball rolling a little bit more. You want to adjust to the student skill levels. So where there were questions, we answered them. And then we also asked some critical questions. Jingi was asking things like, or saying things like, I really like the way you're tackling this from the standpoint of this is the problem, this is something that's happening, and now we're going off and trying to resolve it. So these are all different techniques that you can use. So like Wish Wonder, we're not going to do this today because we're way over time. But what Like Wish Wonder does, and I think Rich has seen me do it, and Ag has seen me do it, Charlie has seen me do it, Edgar has, of course, seen me do it and facilitated it himself, is a thing where we actually go around the room. We allow each person to say one thing they liked about the day, one thing they wish they knew more information about, or one thing they wondered about. And then they're able to get collaboration or get that sense of community from other people agreeing with them. But in person, we do snaps. Over Zoom, it may be the claps or reaction or something like that. But the point is to have the student take a moment to see what they did, to reflect back on the day, to see what they did well, to see something that they want to improve on in a positive way, or something they wish they knew more about in a positive way. So that helps the student solidify themselves in a positive way, but it most importantly, as a mentor, it helps you to know where that student is so that you can modify and change or ask for help or do whatever you need to do to assist. Edgar and Junyi like to do it written, so they have them write it out and then say it. Am I right, Edgar? You usually have them write it, right?
I give them some time to think.
I like to do it on the spot.
Yeah, I like to do it on the spot.
Because I like to keep the positivity going. I don't want them to go into that well of thoughts. I want them to reflect quickly and then make sure it's a positive thought so that it doesn't, if it is a negative thought, it doesn't get too deep.
I do think, in my mind, as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself as a mentor, I would really like to make a note of the wish and the wonder as maybe action items that I can take away. And maybe I go do a little research. Maybe I find an article that I send to the team via the Slack channel, like, hey, Mike, you said you wish you knew more about Jupyter Lab. Well, here's a YouTube video, or here's a, here's a how-to or something that maybe you can watch tonight while we're not, actively programming or, building UI. To me, that seems like kind of like a duty, like an obligation as a mentor that I should be trying to do. And I don't know how you guys feel about that as
Rich,
I'll
say this. I actually did do some of that at the Perk Hackathon to keep them from going down the wrong rabbit hole. So if one of the things that my team was doing was trying to figure out how to move data from their web into a Jupyter notebook, so yeah, I already had come up with a solution for them, and then just started pointing them in the right direction to make sure they were implementing the right solution and not going down. Because, there's nothing worse than putting in an hour of effort, realizing that you came up with nothing at the end of it because you went down the wrong hole. So that's really good.
And Edgar, is there anything you want to say about it? Because you've used this technique. You saw me use the technique, and then you started using the technique. Are there any thoughts you want to bring up?
I think it's just like Rich was saying, it's an ability to sort of provide feedback to the people who are putting on the event in real time, something to give you to think about, and obviously trying to keep it positive helps the participants and it helps the team. I'm just used to doing it in large groups, so it takes a long time to do. So if you do implement it out, if you're implemented right here within a hackathon, your team is going to be about at least 5 people, 5 to 6 people. So it won't take as long. But if you're going to take this outside, externally to other events or other groups that you may have, keep in mind that if you have 40 students, 30, 40 students trying to do like Wish Wonder at the end of the day, it might be easier to break it into smaller groups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. So beyond that, I want to thank everybody for coming. Of course, I want to thank Charlie and Jun Yi for putting this together for everyone. Our contact information is here. Of course, we've given you the PDF of the presentation. You're going to be seeing more emails from me for the other sessions for the students. Feel free to come. Feel free to come if you want to come. And beyond that, you will be getting more information from me as we get closer and closer and, oh my God, closer to the event. So if there aren't any questions, y'all are free to roam about the country, and we'll see you soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
You know what? With the
Jamie,
COVID stuff, don't roam around the country.
Virtually
Thanks.
roam around the country.
Thanks,
Yes,
guys.
we'll see you. Bye.
Very nice meeting.